When you think about the life of Jesus, Jesus was also a very important person during his time. I mean, this guy was the big story that time. Big boys in town knew everything about Jesus. You know, everywhere he went, people would stop and pay attention to what Jesus was doing or what he was saying. For his disciples, tax collectors, they were fishermen, they are rolling with the big boy in town. I can imagine, if it was our time, they will be taking selfies, posting them on Instagram, and hashtag hanging with Jesus. And wait, that didn't sound very right. But even with all this attention, even with all this power and fame that Jesus had, there was something different about how he lived. So everything is working. They're in their highest season. Jesus continued to talk plainly and directly about his death, about the suffering that was impending. The Son of Man in his human form will be betrayed to the leading priests and the teachers of religious law. Look at what he says. They will sentence him to die and hand him over to the Romans. They will mock him. They will spit on him. They will flog him with a whip and kill him. But after 3 days, he will rise again. This must have been very confusing for the disciples. It didn't make sense. Because at one point, when you think logically, how can we be superstars that everyone is talking about what we are doing and everyone is talking about the accolades of Jesus Christ, and then on the other hand, you're talking about that we are going to be sufferers? We are going to suffer in the hands of the Romans? This must have been very confusing. James and John, after the heart-to-heart moment, the sons of Zebedee came over and spoke to him. And they said, "Teacher, we want you to do us a favor. Jesus has just finished sharing about the death that is coming." Have you ever had or encountered that situation where when a friend wants something from you, and they come to you and they're like, "You know what? Hey, how are you doing?" And you're like, "I'm not that good." And they're like, "Oh, okay. In fact, what I wanted to do is that I wanted to ask if I can borrow your car." It's as if they were not even listening. It's as if they had rehearsed this over and over again. And you feel like at this point you just want to smack James and John because they didn't listen to what Jesus was saying. "What is your request?" They replied, "When you sit on your glorious throne, we want to sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left." Anyone who wants just to smack James and John right now? Because it is in such verses that becomes very confusing. James and John are so focused on sitting on the seat of power. But isn't this what our corporate sector advises us to do? Isn't this what society has dictated for us? That we need to be ambitious. See an opportunity, jump and go for it. Go-getters who are willing to do whatever it will take to get to the top. And in many of our companies, these attributes will get you to the top. That's true. And to some extent, you can't even blame them because anyway, in the same Bible, it tells us, ask and you shall receive. And in verse 38, Jesus says to them, "You don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I'm about to drink? Are you able to be baptized with the baptism of suffering I must be baptized with?" And they say, "Oh yes, we are able." And I love that Jesus did not rebuke them. Instead, he denied their request. But somehow, this story leaked. In verse 41, look at what it says. When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. They were angry. Maybe they had not seen the opportunity. And so Jesus had to step in and stop things from escalating. And as he taught them, true greatness is a paradox. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. To be a leader, I must be a servant. That's what he's saying. You see, Jesus taught one major topic, and that was about God's kingdom. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. He came to bring a revolution that will result in God's influence in everything. And God created each of us to be a representative of his kingdom, to impact the earth with the culture of heaven. And this is what I like, because God here is telling us, when it comes to leadership in my kingdom, this is how leadership is done, that you must serve others. And Jesus knew that that is not easy for us to do. But that's what God wants us to become. Until we are unsatisfied with the way we are, with our status quo, fearlessly changing every sector of society by serving others. And that's why we say at Mavuno that we exist to turn ordinary people into fearless influencers of society. It is so easy for us when we begin to succeed for success to go to our heads. It is so easy. It's a bloodline. In God's kingdom, service is the route to greatness. And greatness is the route to more service. It's a virtuous cycle. I don't believe that politics is too dirty to be redeemed. I don't believe that. We just need servant leaders who understand what true leadership is. To be a leader, I must be a servant. In fact, I love what Rick Warren says. He's a famous pastor. He says, what matters most is not the duration of your life. It is the donation of your life. When you serve, you move from being a consumer to a contributor. You move from being a spectator to a servant. Where are you serving? Who are you serving? And let it not be that you're serving yourself, but that you're serving others, because that's what Jesus expects of us. Learn to serve the public selflessly, cheerfully. But if you don't exercise servant leadership, you will get to the top, but you will not remain there. That God does not condemn our ambition. He doesn't. If you want to be an important person, if you want to be an influential person in this society, in this city, do it the right way.